Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. My name is Matthew, and thank you for being here for another episode of Beyond the Lines. It's the show where we get an opposition supporter's view when it comes to previewing Newcastle's next game. And this Saturday, 12:30, it's the Alessandro Pistone derby, ladies and gentlemen, as Newcastle travel to Goodison Park to take on Everton. To help me preview this one, I'm joined by a massive Everton fan. He's a contributor to a number of podcasts and publications as he's a football analyst. It's the beautiful, it's the brilliant Mr. David Hughes. How are you doing, sir?
I mean, after that introduction, I'm doing very well. Thank you, Matthew. You started bad when you brought up Pistone, because he only brings up negative thoughts in my eyes. But yeah, I'm doing well, thank you, mate.
Over 100 appearances for you guys. I couldn't believe it when I saw that. I thought he was just a footnote in Newcastle's history.
Yeah, I always remember. I mean, not to go down a rabbit hole so soon, but I always remember them sitting in the park end, and the ball had gone out for a corner, and he clicked over a ball boy and said,
"Oh God,
hey, you get the ball." And I don't think his career ever recovered, because I've never seen especially at Goodison as well, just take some doing, but I've never seen a home player get so much stick in my life. And yeah, I don't think he ever bounced back from that one, and rightfully so.
There was a famous story of apparently they did Secret Santa or something at Newcastle before, and John Beresford got him a sheep's heart from a butcher because they said he had no heart as a player. So this podcast started off really well, reminiscing about Alessandro Pistone. But anyway, mate, we'll crack on. Before we get into everything about the game on Saturday, we'll talk about Everton. At the time of recording, you guys are on 32 points. 3 points outside the top four. You've got 2 or 3 games in hand on the teams above you. You're about to play Leicester tonight. You could go above Liverpool. You're still in the FA Cup. Great season so far.
Yeah. Definitely no complaints. Obviously, it's a really bizarre campaign that we're in at the moment, where for a lot of teams, very conscious that, we're mainly talking to a Newcastle audience here, but for a lot of other teams, it's really open this year, isn't it? At the top, and Everton feel like they're right in there. They're playing some really good stuff. Got a fantastic manager in place, and I thought they recruited really well in the summer. Obviously James Rodriguez was a big signing, but even the likes of Decore, Allen, obviously they've done really well. Calvert-Lewin has stepped up massively, and things are just ticking along very nicely at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not jealous at all. But to move on to you've mentioned your business there. That was the next thing I was going to move on to. It's no secret you spent a little bit of money, but it wasn't astronomical money, but it was just really quality acquisitions in the middle of the park. You've just said Decore there. I've been a fan of him for a long time. Alan from Napoli. Really brings a grit, but also, keeps the ball really well. But we'll have to talk about the headliner, James Rodriguez. It was a bit of a shock when he came along. I mean, this is the show that Carlo Ancelotti can attract that caliber of player. And he started off like a house on fire, has had his injuries. But what has he done? What has he injected into this Everton team?
Oh, he's phenomenal. Already, he's one of the best players I've seen in the Premier League era. In an Everton shirt, and I think there was a perception that he's potentially a player who was kind of living on reputation a little bit. Got a big move on the back of the World Cup. Played for some big clubs, but never really did it. I think maybe Newcastle fans might see it in this game on the weekend, but if you watch him, he's a phenomenal player. He's just literally, he's a level above everybody else on the pitch. He's got fantastic vision. His distribution is phenomenal, and what he's got that I think Everton have missed for a couple of seasons is he's got genuine, legitimate output in the final third. He creates shots. He's a threat himself. If you have a look at the kind of Premier League shot creating actions, plays creating the biggest chances, he's right up there. He's a phenomenal talent, and it's madness that Everton actually brought him in on officially a free transfer. Yeah. I can't believe it, man.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was surreal seeing him in an Everton shirt, but such is the Premier League, the draw of the Premier League, and the draw of a man like Carlo Ancelotti. I mean, it was pretty surreal to see him become Everton manager. And what has he done, David? What has he already done at Everton? I know he took a little time to settle in. There was a game against Newcastle, which we will come to, which, intents of purpose, you should have won. But what difference have you saw in your team since Carlos came in?
Yeah, I think Ancelotti he's a phenomenal manager, but I wouldn't say he's an unbelievable tactician. He's right up there in that sense, but I think he's very subtle in the changes he makes. I think what he brings is a ton of experience at the highest level, and this kind of winning mentality. It's really hard to question a manager who's done what he's done.
Yeah.
I think at a club like Everton, I think Newcastle in the same bracket, historically big clubs who are desperate to start winning things again and be successful again. I think it's quite easy when it turns pear-shaped to start questioning the manager, and more inexperienced coaches in years gone by. So like your Marco Silvas, for example, who was here before Ancelotti. It was quite easy to question his decisions. I don't think you do that with Ancelotti. I think everybody's pulling in the right direction now because of what he's done, and the club just feels aligned at the moment, and that's huge because it's just the way he works. And as I said, it's all very subtle but very important. Like, one thing I think Everton have been fantastic at this season is set pieces. I think set pieces are so underrated in the game because football is a low scoring sport. It's normally settled by maybe 1 or 2 goals. If you're adding, maybe 10, 12 goals a season from set pieces, you could probably gonna add about 10 or 12 points as well to the campaign. So he's for example introduced that where Everton become really dangerous at set pieces, and it's had big benefits so far.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you on the set pieces. There's nothing more frustrating than watching a professional footballer hit the first man from a corner. Let me tell you that, especially when someone like John Joe Shelby's doing it, who I get told by fans of other teams and other pundits that he's a fantastic passer of the ball, but I think that those days are gone in my opinion. But just talking about Carlo Ancelotti there, mate, I mean, and not to bring up the comparison that is as old as the hills, but we talk about the Steve Bruce thing that we're going through. Talk about Rafa, and when we had Rafa Benitez, you could criticize him. He wasn't above criticism, but we saw near the end of his tenure there that he was building something and everyone was pulling in the same direction. And every time we started a game, we might start off negative, but you could see what he was trying to do. You could see where our output was going to come from, where our threat was going to come from in most games. Whereas, you compare this to Bruce and people will say, oh, well, they're both defensive coaches. For me, it's apples and oranges, man. And it's not just because of his, the titles he's won. It is a little bit that, but you can just see that manager knows what he's doing, and the other one doesn't know that much. Yeah. But I agree. Yeah, but we'll move on. One thing I always come to halfway through the podcast is I always ask if you've got any memories of this fixture, particularly at Goodison Park. Is there any games that really spring to mind?
I still have nightmares about the one about 12 months ago where Everton was sailing to I remember thinking this is probably one of Everton's performances of the season. They were really commanding, played really well, and then that madness at the end. I didn't sleep for the week, I don't think.
Were you at that game, or were you just at home?
Yes, yeah. So nice. That made it worse. Although obviously I'm not going to complain too much about attending football matches, seeing as that was probably one of the last. Well, thankfully I get to go through work, but not to watch Everton. So that was a bad memory. Trying to think of some good ones because there's been some good games.
We have an awful record at Goodison Park. We've only picked up a couple of points. I think there's been one win in the last 10 years or something stupid.
I didn't know it was that good, to be honest. I mean, you can come more often then, because
we've been all right at St James's Park. We've got a couple of results at you there.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's for another time. But I think the one that springs to mind with me is obviously that 2-2. I mean, not to go on about it again, but I actually decided to ignore that game. I was getting to the point where I was sort of sat at 10 with Steve Bruce, and I was thinking we're going to get smashed off Everton here. I think Moisey Ken got one of his only goals for Everton that night. And
his only league goal, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking, here we go. So I just sort of turned my phone off, and I don't know what I was doing, but I ignored it, and then my phone just started going ape shit. And I just thought, we haven't won. But then I looked, we may as well have won to score 2 goals from a centre half in 90 seconds, and it was absolutely mental. I mean, there's a couple of others. I think our only other good results have been like we've snatched draws. We've always snatched draws there. Under Joe Kinnear, I think we came from 2-0 down against yous, and that was the season we got relegated, I think. So
as we're speaking now, I'm just trying. I'm having a look at the results that we've had at Goodison over the years, and there's another. So there's basically, obviously, the draw last season. There was a draw there, and then there was 4 back-to-back Everton wins, and then I've just had memories of this 2-2 back in 2012, and I'm sure it was the ball crossed the line in that game for Everton to get it.
I think it was
Anachibi, was there someone?
Anachibi, yeah, and then I think we played awful, and I think we came back from 1-0 down, but then you went 2-1, and it should have been 3-1, and out of nowhere, Demba Ba goes and scores again, and it was a proper smash and grab point. That smash and grab. The only other one I think we won was a 1-0 Ben Arthur. I remember that goal, Ben Arthur's full debut.
Oh yeah, it was a fantastic goal, wasn't it?
Yeah, he slapped one in, and that's all she wrote in terms of positive results for us. Like I think there's been like 3-0s and 3-1s, and I expect it, and we'll move on to previewing the game now, mate. I expect it to follow suit because I mean you guys are playing great football. I'm talking to a football analyst here, mate, and I know you've said you've watched a little bit of Newcastle. So begs the question: what have you made of Bruce Ball?
Yeah. I think I alluded to yourself, didn't I, when we were speaking a couple of days ago about for so long I found Newcastle, perplexing really, in that they didn't get relegated last season because all the underlying metrics said they were the worst team in the league. In terms of, I don't know how much you use like expected metrics, so they're like expected goals and stuff, expected goals against, but in terms of like expected points, they were the worst in the league. The attacking numbers were terrible. Defensively they looked okay, to be fair, but I said it's not much has changed. I think, and I've just got to look now, I think what really helped Newcastle, ironically, with us talking about it earlier, was they seemed to be scoring a lot of goals from set pieces last season. I think only 4 teams scored more, so I think sometimes, as I said, set pieces can be quite important. 14 they got, so that kind of probably did them a big favour, and it seemed quite comfortable in the end. And pundits were kind of saying, well, he's as good as Rafa, this is fine, what the Newcastle fans expect, the generic lines. But again, Newcastle look really poor metrics wise. They're right down there. They're amongst the bottom 3 teams. Attacking numbers poor. Defensive numbers not that great either. And I can understand why Newcastle fans are frustrated, because it's not to keep going on about brands, because teams like to win games, and sometimes you want results, don't you? But it just feels like it's so negative. And the annoying thing is there's some good plays at Newcastle. I know they like to say Maximum. He hasn't been available, has he, recently? No. But you've got some really, if you're going to play like a Wolves type setup where you prefer to sit in and soak, they do have plays that can hit you on the counter and cause issues, but it just looks like they're not coached in how to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. I mean, with the whole Steve Bruce fiasco, I remember people telling me, wouldn't stop beating me over the head with it, he's doing just as good as Rafa, and I just said, look, there's a big element of luck, and it really does pay credence to your point earlier on that if you can score from set pieces, you will probably get a few more positions up the league like we did. We looked like we stayed up comfortably, but like you said, 14 goals from set pieces. But Steve Bruce now is chopping and changing his formation. He's went back to the back 5, but it's a back 5 of literally 5 defenders in a row. You're not playing with those players to hit players on the teams on the break. You look at our bench, and that's where most of our pace is. And the Sheffield United game was the biggest culprit of it all, where he played 9 defensive players, including the goalkeeper, and you just had Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser. Them 2 aren't going to formulate breaks by themselves. And it's like you just said, I don't feel like they're coached in that way. And he just chopped and changed the formation, and therein lies the problem. And this is why we want him gone. But he's not going to be gone, because we played 20 minutes of okay, a bit better than shite football against Leeds last night. So I mean, I think if we'd have just played first half terrible, second half terrible, we might have seen the end of Steve Bruce, but we managed to score a goal, and it was a decent goal, and it was nice to finally get one of those things for the first time in a while. But I feel like he's going to be there obviously he's going to be there on Saturday. We've just got a new coach in from Bournemouth, and he's probably going to be there the game after. But if I had to press you for a prediction, mate, scoreline, what are you going for?
Obviously we don't know where Everton have got on tonight yet. not that I think that would play a massive part. What I will say is I think Everton haven't been as great breaking down teams as they have sitting in and hitting teams in transition. Everton had a really good run of results, beating Chelsea, Leicester, Arsenal, teams like that, back to back, because they give them the ball and said, you break us down and we'll hit you on the counter. Newcastle will be the opposite, so I think it will be a little bit more difficult, as counterintuitive as that sounds. Yeah. But I'd have to say, obviously on form at Goodison, Everton are really, thinking about Champions League this year. I'd probably go for a 2-0, I'd say Everton.
Yeah, I think that would be a mercy killing for us, mate. I'm always negative on these things because that's what I've been beaten into. But I mean, I'd take a point now. Whether we can get a point, I'm not too sure. But I think I'd probably go something similar, probably 2-0. But is there any players that are a bit out of form for you guys that haven't scored in a while?
Are you worried they're going to open the account against Newcastle?
I'm not worried. I'm just letting you know they're going to, because I'm genuinely sick to death now. Aubameyang hasn't scored in how many, and he goes and scores a brace against us, and they tell us all about that. Sheffield United haven't won a game all season. They go and win the game. Leeds last night hadn't scored in God knows how long they go and score two. And it just seems like we're this very charitable side that like to just give players confidence. So I mean, I don't know. You'll probably get someone like Luca Digne or something like that scoring his first goal. God knows how long.
To be fair, I can't relate to that because I don't want to say the S word on Newcastle pod, but I remember we played Sunderland and I think John Stead hadn't scored in about 2 seasons or something. Then he went and scored at Goodison. And again, there's a lot of similarities between the two clubs, despite them looking different at the moment. In all seriousness, I think my dog just barked then. He must be on first goal scorer. Yeah, I think Calvert-Lewin's the one that you got to be worried about, or maybe Richarlison. I think they're both quite dangerous and in the competition to get goals at the moment.
Yeah, top players, and hopefully the only time I'm going to be rooting for Calvert-Lewin is if obviously we'll be playing in the Euros, but whether he starts or not alongside Harry Kane, I will root for him then. But until then, I hope he doesn't score another goal because I just feel like you could really do some damage on Saturday, but fingers crossed that doesn't happen. But hope deceives me. But mate, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'll let you get away to the game. Best of luck against Leicester tonight. And for everyone watching, thank you very much for watching. Please like the video, please share the video, and please don't forget to subscribe to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel.